Reclaiming Your Happiness with Lemus LLC, really what stems from that are a couple of different things. So for one, it's the life coaching aspect to it. And, I'm going to be honest with you all. I think when I started looking at life coaching for the beginning, or self-help spirituality thing, I mostly just saw middle-aged white women in that field. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I was just like, there needs to be representation. And I hardly saw men of color in any of those spaces. And so for me, spirituality is so important that I wanted to share that, and I want to continue to share that with the world. And
Mi gente presente.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Juan Pablo Esquivel, and this is Cooperative Economics and Latinidad. Today, we have Michael Lemus from Reclaiming Your Happiness, LLC. Before we begin, we would like for y'all to join this Facebook group called Support Latine-Owned Businesses. Come check it out to see the various Latine-owned businesses across the U.S. Join, own, support, invest, and create Latinidad. Now, Michael, thank you for coming and sharing this time with us. Would you mind introducing yourself and sharing the business of which you own?
Absolutely. So I first just want to start off by just saying thank you. I've been in contact with Francisco because Francisco was on our Scholars of Color platform. So super excited to just see your platform just expanding and growing and just seeing all the different people that are coming through. But yes, as you mentioned, my name is Michael Lemus, and I'm the founder and CEO of Reclaiming Your Happiness with Lemus LLC. So that's actually a platform and a business that I'm the founder and CEO of. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about what the pillars of the actual platform are a little bit later. But I get the privilege and honor to just, one, be able to actually start a business, but also now run one and expanding the team and bringing on an intern and things like that. So I'm very excited to be talking to you about what we do through the actual platform and business today.
Thank you for sharing. Now, what does reclaiming your happiness mean to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's interesting because this whole platform and business, it started off as a Facebook blog, and it actually started in August of 2018. And to be honest, I never had the actual intention of creating a business out of it. So it's interesting that it has become this widely known actual platform and business now. But when it first started, it was actually just meant to be a space where I was building community with other people, but I was also using it kind of as a cathartic release to release my own emotions, because at the time, I was going through a really big transition in my life, personally and professionally, where I was just healing a lot of just internal wounds that I was needing to process through. And so I was still experiencing, a high form of anxiety, and I was experiencing depression. So I needed some sort of release. And when I actually started thinking about, okay, well, what can I do to go ahead and do that? Writing came to mind. And I've always really been into social media. So I was like, okay, well, why don't I do this on a social media platform? And so it started off that way, and basically it was a lot of blog posts, and it was me just talking about my experiences, talking about mental health, and reclaiming happiness, because I think that we all have a right to be happy in our lives. And oftentimes, we're socialized to become people that we never wanted to become. And society sometimes brainwashes us, right? And telling us what they think is right or what is the cool thing to do. And we all have this magic within us to really be able to live out our truth. And for me, reclaiming happiness is that. It's the ability to go ahead and reclaim our power, reclaim our truth. And so much of it was also tied to culture. So for me, it was also tapping back into cultural roots, learning about my history, learning about my family, and really diving deep into generational trauma too, and how we can actually work together to heal through generational trauma and really address that too. So it really is framed on just that reclaiming of happiness, but also just there's so much healing to it. And I really do believe that it was always meant to be, and has remained this way, a community platform. So it really is about bringing other people along. And my hope is that as I share out, this knowledge and wisdom, and this continues to grow, that other people will be inspired to do something similar in their own light, of course, but that they will also feel empowered to live out their truth as well.
Great. Would you mind elaborating on the 5 pillars of Arise?
Absolutely, yes. So Arise, it's a cool story with that. So about a year into building the platform, and at this point, I was already starting to think about, okay, this can actually become a business. And so just to explain what the actual business is, there's multiple things that actually runs out of Reclaiming Your Happiness with Lemus. One of them is life coaching services. And for me, the way that I perform life coaching is very much around spirituality. And it goes back to reclaiming your happiness, reclaiming your power, and really feeling empowered to actually uplift our voices and advocate for ourselves. Because oftentimes, we don't learn how to actually advocate for ourselves, how to go ahead and speak up and feel empowered. That's not a traditional curriculum. And so much of the coaching that I do with my clients is around that. It's about reclaiming power. And so Arise actually came up when I was in a trip. So around, it was actually last summer, around this time actually in July, I went off to Washington because I really felt at that time period, I'm like, something big is happening. I don't know exactly what, but I really need to just go away and really think about what that is for me. And I was going through a career transition as well. And just a lot of, again, personal shifts were going on. So I felt like I needed to get away. So I went off to Washington, and there's this place in Washington called Orcas Islands. And it's a set of islands in Washington right below Canada. And I got a chance to go ahead and go there. And it was during that trip, went by myself. Mind you, I didn't know anyone on that freaking island, but I just used it as a time to explore. And that's where these pillars came about. So I started to think, and I asked myself, well, if someone were to ask you what you're about, what is this platform about? I would answer it in the same way. And it's really these pillars. So Arise stands for advocacy is the A, R is for reclaiming your power, I is for inclusion, S is for spirituality, and E is for empowerment. Those are all the things that are extremely important to me. And it's really, really critical to the development of the platform, but also just me as a person, right? To always have those things in mind. So anything that actually gets released out of the actual platform itself touches on those pillars. So for example, how I actually met Francisco is because there's part of the platform is actually called Scholars of Color. And that's a whole network of people from all sorts of industries that are really being celebrated and placed front and center as people of color and all the things that they do. And so much of that has to do, of course, with inclusion, feeling empowered, and the life coaching, really. I mean, so much of it touches on all of that, which is why the coaching itself is called Arise Coaching, because I want everyone that goes through coaching services with me to be able to touch on all those things as well, because it's so important. And as people of color, especially, again, sometimes we're not taught those advocacy skills. And sometimes we are not even aware of like the spirituality component. I know Francisco and I have talked about this a lot, but like spirituality is super important to me. It's how I was able to reclaim that happiness. It's how I was able to even find out who I was actually meant to become. Because for the longest time, I felt like I was just, living this lifestyle where I felt I was just going, just to go ahead and, reach accomplishments or accolades or get awards, because I thought that was just the right thing to do. And then I realized that I wasn't really living out my actual life. And I was just constantly feeling anxious because I was just doing so much. And while I was successful to the external world, that's not what, at least in my opinion, what life is all about. And I think that's a component of it, but there's so much more to live, right? And to connect with other humans about. So that's what Arise is about. I mean, it just encompasses all of that. It really is a feeling. And I also believe that it's a movement, because the more people that come along, the more that it's a ripple effect, and they're able to influence other people to also do the same thing and, reclaim that power.
How did you develop this business to have your own interns?
Yeah, great question too. So I realized, and I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs and business folks can understand this, there are certain things when you're building a business that just take up so much time. And there are also things that, we start to realize like, oh, I'm much better at this than I am at that. And design is one of those bigger pieces for me. So I've made flyers on Canva before and things like that, but they weren't like super fancy. Like design it's not my thing. I'm really good at communication and coming up with projects and the wording behind it. And I'm really good at storytelling, but putting it on like a fancy design and using all that, InDesign and Adobe and all those things, not my thing. So I realized I needed help because it was taking up so much time, and it also wasn't meeting the quality that I wanted to be at. So I actually put out a call out, which was really cool, through Instagram. And I just said, I'm looking for a student intern. And then someone reached out who coincidentally just found me through someone else's platform, because actually it was through Scholars of Color. And I knew that I wanted to revamp Scholars of Color at the time to have more of a fresh look. And so this student intern I was able to get in contact with. And essentially what I did is, I was very transparent with them. I let them know my vision of where I was trying to go, went over the expectations, and, it worked out really nicely. Like, I'm still working with them. It's actually been about 6 months. And it was really cool because for me, coming from an educational background, I really wanted to make sure that I was also connecting to the undergraduate population. And the intern is still in school. So I felt like there was this connection. They were really passionate about Scholars of Color. So they mainly actually work on the designs for that. But for me, a student intern and any future employees that I have, it's really important for me to give them the opportunity to expand. So I'm definitely not a micromanager. So I really believe that, I want to go ahead and ask, whether it be an intern or an employee, be like, hey, what is it that you actually really like to do? And how can we implement this into the platform, and have those conversations? But yeah, it literally started off as an Instagram call out on a story. And then we had a conversation and it was just set in stone. Yeah.
And Reclaiming Your Happiness with Lemus LLC is a growing online community. What best practices would you like to share on creating the community?
Yeah, what changed, and I should say has changed my life, is showcasing vulnerability. So much of my social media usage prior to like 2-3 years ago was like your traditional kind of materialistic on the surface things. I mean, it was very much like, oh, look, I got this award, or oh, look, I'm chairing this conference now, or oh, look at this like cool coffee I'm drinking. Nothing against any of those things, because they were all part of the journey and I think they're all important. But I wasn't talking about myself. It was very much on like, these are the things that are occurring. And there's a lot of social media usage, right, where you see like these perfect little pictures and people are only sharing like their perfect side of the, their life, which in reality, I'm a strong believer that no one is perfect and no one has a perfect life, because we're all experiencing issues and it's all just a life journey. So we're meant to learn from even the bad things. So I started to shift before even the platform existed. I started to shift and I was just like, I need to just start sharing more of my true self. One, to understand me better, but also just to show people that I wasn't like this perfectly put together person all the freaking time, because that's exhausting. So I started to shift, and vulnerability became something that became the center of the actual platform before the actual pillars existed. And I continue to do that. So all of my posts touch on some aspect of Arise, but they're all also talking to some aspect of vulnerability and storytelling. I think that storytelling is also something that's just huge to building community, because what I've seen happen, which has been really, really cool, is as I share out these stories, other people resonate with them, whether it be about anxiety or spirituality or being first gen, whatever that is, people relate to it. And then there's something within that I feel like I can connect to, and I can be part of this community. I can be part of this movement. So it just continues to build. And then Scholars of Color has been a game changer, because as we develop each of those profiles on each of those people, everyone has a network. And now that, our student interns have been able to make all these really cool templates, the Scholars of Color are actually sharing those out on their actual social media channels. And it's really cool, because then other people start following along, my platform. And then sometimes they become Scholars of Color profiles too. So it's just a ripple effect of community building. But for me, and I always told myself from the beginning, and I've told people in my like close friendship circle, I'm like, if I ever get to a point where community is not at the core of what I'm doing, I need you to call me the heck out. Because I said it from the beginning that it was always going to be about community. And for me, that's why outside of just the business aspect where I actually gain money, there's also a lot of opportunities to just connect in ways that don't cost money. Because I also know that not everyone has the access or the privilege to be able to get a life coach, for example. And so I want to always make sure that there are opportunities still within the platform where people can engage. So Scholars of Color is an interesting thing, because people have actually asked me like, how much is it for me to be on a profile? And I'm like, it doesn't cost nothing. Like, it's not a thing that was ever meant to be something that would cost money. So yeah, to me, equity is very important. And so I'm always trying to provide value in ways that, are investments, but also in free ways where it doesn't cost money.
What goals would you like to achieve in the next 10 years?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. So it's funny, because I used to think about it in like in time frames. So, when I was in grad school, and I went to grad school for higher education, I had all these ideas in mind. And it's funny when I think about it now, because I was on the trajectory for it. So for example, I said, okay, I'm going to become a director by like age 28. I'm going to have my doctoral program or like my actual like doctoral degree by like 31, 32. And the irony was that, and I'm 28 now. The irony is that I was on that trajectory. So I was already in that world. And I had actually gotten into a doctoral program last year. And ultimately, because of just really finding my true self and really feeling like I need to contribute to this platform and this business right now, I think about it a little bit differently now, because I don't necessarily think about it in terms of like accolades. It's more of a feeling. And so what I want to feel like in 10 years is completely financially independent. So that's super important to me. I'm looking into what that means for me right now, but also what that means for my family, because it's really, really important for me to, again, connect back to people and the community. So I want to feel financially independent where there's no concern about money, so much so that I'm able to just like contribute and donate to causes without even like looking at my finances. It's just like I'm just going to do it. I identify as like a multi-passionate, multifaceted CEO because outside of this platform, there's so much more than just the coaching, right? The actual service itself. There's products now. There are, there's scholars of color. So I really wanted to continue to grow and more things come out of it. So I want to continue to feel that multifaceted, multi-passionate CEO vibration. And I just want to feel free. I want to feel free and happy. If I were to say like the things that I would want to occur by then, I am someone that loves writing, as I mentioned. So I definitely want to write a book, and just continue and expanding on how I can reach people. So, books, newsletters, podcasts, all of those things are important to me, and communications is huge for me. But yeah, I think the big thing is just feeling free to just be like, all right, this feels good right now, so I'm going to go ahead and launch this now. And by then, I would really want to see this platform and business be much bigger in terms of how widely known it is. And I don't necessarily want to become like an influencer or anything like that. I used to think that I did. And so it's not even necessarily about that, but I do want it to be a widely known platform for good things. Not just because like my pictures look cool or like I'm, going abroad and being able to do all these things. Like those are cool, but I really want it to be like, if you've heard of Brene Brown or like those types of people that are doing like, big self-help, self-growth type of things, that's what I want to be known for. And so in 10 years, I really want to be widely known, but also just internally feeling at peace in just all areas of my life and just feeling free enough to just be like, this feels good and I'm going to do it.
What are your thoughts on cooperative economics and Latinidad?
Yeah, and I'm really glad, and it's been really cool to see your platform grow so quickly too, because economics is just so important. And when I think of financial literacy, I'm still trying to learn things right now. And, we're not taught these things. And for many of us that identify, for example, as first gen, I always talk about my first full-time job, because when I got my first full-time job out of grad school, it was like $48,000 in California. And I had never seen that type of money because I had never known anyone in my family to make that much. And, it's not like it's tons of money either, right? Like that was my first entry level position. And I was really grateful. But at the same time, like I had no idea like how benefits worked. I didn't understand investments. I didn't understand like that if you just let your money sit in the bank, like it's not necessarily growing. So all of these things right around just the economics component to it and the financial literacy, I think building, or the platform that you all have is so important for other entrepreneurs to continue to build themselves. One, by showcasing themselves. So I really appreciate that you all are highlighting us, because you're helping us to grow. But also, I think that understanding the economics component, because especially, Latinx folks, like we contribute so much to the economy. Like it's proven, right? There's data there. But how much do we understand as, Latinx folks, like how much do we understand how money works? And so I'm really, really interested in that. I actually just enrolled in a course that has to do with all things like money and learning about all these like things that I can do to invest and how I can be using my money in different ways. And I believe in multiple streams of income. And I think that that's really cool about our community in particular, because we're known as hustlers and we're known as just coming up with things and being like, well, like we've been doing that in the household, so why not like do that? Like whether it be, I know some people that do like knitting and, the paleteros, like all sorts of people. We know, and we're resilient, and we know how to just come up with things and sell. And I think that that's really important. And I would actually go as far as to say that as a community, by society, we're not necessarily empowered to recognize that all of those things are transferable skills that can be grown. And sometimes people belittle folks that are just like, oh, they just sell flowers, like, out on the corner. But it's just like, yeah, but do you know how much work that takes and the like expertise that you need to have to be able to do that? And you're still getting it so much cheaper than you would to like go to this fancy little shop that like is not even giving you the same value, but yet you're paying so much more. So that's why it's so important, because I want us, within our community to understand our true value, which is why, and I coach a lot of people that are building their businesses and their platforms. And I always tell them, like, think about cross-marketing opportunities and how this one idea that you may have never thought to charge for could actually be something that people could invest in and actually like stimulate the economy. So that's important to me too, because there's so many opportunities. So definitely just appreciate you all doing this.
And what advice have you received from starting this business?
Yeah, keep documents. Just like keep everything in terms of like your expenses, your revenue, like what you're actually bringing in, and learn how to value yourself. So when I started coaching, it I was thinking about this about a month ago. I'm just like, wow, I undervalued myself so much. Because I was afraid, like I was so afraid, and I was just like, and I felt guilty. So that's important to talk about too, right? Because I had folks, even in our own community be like, why are you charging for that? Like, you should just be helping people and like just giving them advice. And it's like, yo, I already do that like so much. And, I also need to learn how to value my labor, because what people are paying for are for your expertise and for the work that you're putting in. And so I don't just like talk to my clients, like I prepare for those things. I give them resources, and it's labor, because otherwise you could just be, just taking leisure time. But it's worth of the investment. And so the advice has been definitely learning to value myself. So I invested in coaches before I actually started coaching myself. So I invested in people that I was just like, I think they can help me. And so much of it was around like worthiness and understanding like the logistics with it and the tools that I could use. So if I were to just generalize it, I would just say, look into resources, tap into your community, tap into your network. There's so many incredible things on social media these days, like pages you can follow that even give so much free value and free resources. And so there's a lot that you can tap into, but definitely just looking into your resources, valuing yourself is just super, super important. And then the other thing I would say is, and this is like one of the bigger things that has just been a theme in my life, is you're always going to have haters. There are always going to be people, whether they're outright in how they don't like whatever you're doing, or they just find ways to just try to bring it down or talk bad about it with other people, whatever. There's always going to be people that are just not happy for you. And that's important to know, because so much of what people do, human beings try to do, is people please. And I don't have time. I don't have time or energy to go ahead and actually be like working to please everyone in the world, because I know that that's not possible. My job is to, continue to fulfill my soul's purpose. And I now know what I meant to do. And it's going to continue to expand and grow, right? But I know at the core of my being, like who I meant to be. Whereas before I didn't, because I was so busy either trying to water myself down or just impress people or convince people that I just like was doing all the things. And now I'm just like, meh, like I don't need to do that. And sometimes people are like, oh, well, that can come off like cocky or conceited. And it's just like, no, it's actually just setting yourself free, because we don't need to be consistently always worried about what every single person is going to think about us, because you could do the most amazing thing and people are still going to have judgment. So that's the other thing too. And my great grandma used to say this, and she said it to my mom, and then she said it to me. And it's around the lines of like, if they ain't feeding you, if they ain't paying your rent, they don't got an opinion. Because it's like, I mean, because so much people are like, oh, well, have you considered this, or you should do this? And it's like, yo, like, we're not even in the same arena, and yet, like, I haven't heard from you in forever, and all of a sudden you're coming out of the woodworks to, like, tell me something negative. It's like, what's your true intention? That's not to say that not to take in constructive feedback, right? Because we should always be growing and learning. But there are just simply some people that are not there for you, and, you know, you just got to keep doing you.
How would you like our viewers to support your business?
Following on social media. So I can be found on Instagram is the account that I use the most, but I'm at Arise with Lemus, and that's the pillars. So I can be found there. I'm mostly on Instagram, but I also have a website where everything's just like concise and centralized. So that's www.reclaimingyourhappinesswithlemus.com. So all the things are there. So if folks are interested in life coaching, for example, there's a form that they can fill out, or they can DM me, whatever works. But Scholars of Color too, that's always like an ongoing thing. We're always bringing on new people, new experiences, new stories. But honestly, the other thing that I wanted to talk about is just collaborations. If anyone, for example, like this, if anyone's interested in just collaborating or working on a project together, I'm always open to having those conversations, especially if it means just uplifting our communities and marginalized people, and just people of color. I'm always very, very passionate about working on projects like that. But yeah, I mean, if you're just interested in just even having a conversation, definitely contact me. On the website, there's a contact form, but if you want to just do it through social media, I'm all game for that too.
We would like for you to provide a 1 to 2 minute elevator pitch about your business and any messages you would like to share.
Absolutely. So, as I said before, Reclaiming Your Happiness with Lemus LLC, really what stems from that are a couple of different things. So for one, it's the life coaching aspect to it. And, you know, I'm going to be honest with you all. I think when I started looking at life coaching for the beginning, or self-help spirituality thing, I mostly just saw middle-aged white women in that field. And there's nothing wrong with that, but I was just like, there needs to be representation. And I hardly saw men of color in any of those spaces. And so for me, spirituality is so important that I wanted to share that, and I want to continue to share that with the world. And so life coaching for me through this platform has given me that ability to actually spread that message to people, to get them to understand how much value they have within themselves, but also just to see the magic that every single person on this world has. This platform allows me to do that. And a lot of it is me just speaking, right? Speaking and being able to share that wisdom that I've learned from other people too, and spreading that message and helping people to feel empowered. So the platform as a whole, its purpose is to help people find their voice, reclaim their power, reclaim their happiness, and ultimately pursue what it is that they've always been wanting to pursue. But society may have been like, no, like you're not going to be successful. And really this platform, it's at the center and at its core is to just really helping people really realize their dreams, because a lot of people are unfortunately shut down, or they're just never given that chance to do it. And if I have a say and an opportunity to do that, then I'm going to continue to do it. And this platform gives me that opportunity to do that.
With that said, that is all the time that we have now. Thank you, Michael, for joining us.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. This is super fun.
And for everyone at home, make sure to like our YouTube video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on all the social media platforms at Latin Entertainment _presents. And make sure you join to support Latine-owned businesses Facebook group. Join, own, support, invest, create Latinidad. Until next time on Cooperative Economics and Latinidad.
Mi gente presente.
As human beings, we all seek fulfillment. We all try to figure out what it is that makes us happy, what makes us want to live a more fulfilling life. Michael's teachings about being purposely aligned follow through with that.
Hey everyone, Michael Lemus here, founder and CEO of Reclaiming Your Happiness with Lemus LLC. It's a great excitement that I'm here to formally let you know that my first group coaching program is set to launch very soon. It's called Purposefully Align, the coaching program, and I am so excited to bring this experience to the public. It's something that I've been working on for a long time that is finally here. But before any other information, I wanted to go ahead and give you a chance to go ahead and meet some of my very special soul clients that I've gotten the amazing privilege and honor to go ahead and work with. So with that, here they are.
I took this course not really knowing what alignment meant to me. And through this course and given the tools and the activities and the videos, I was able to define that for myself.
I'm so happy that I invested in myself and that I found you and that you have given me these tools to keep going in bettering myself and my life and finding what really serves me and what doesn't anymore in my path to my higher self.
His emphasis on reclaiming your power, reclaiming your happiness, that is a true concept that we as humans want, and yet we find it so hard to accomplish.
The reason why I wanted to take this course, it's not necessarily because I wanted to become aligned, because we all want to become aligned, but it's because I believe in Michael and what he's doing and what he's building, and I admire him so much.
I'm really grateful for the cohort who was a part of this beta experience. I'm really thankful for the community that we built to hear and learn from each and every single person who was a part of the calls, the discussion board posts, etc.
So I highly recommend the course. It is a very bite-sized, and you get a lot of synthesis and really get to interact with people and really create that kind of community.
And the course definitely helped me feel very intentional about, sticking to my rituals, prioritizing mental health and self-care practices, and just having a certain level of self-awareness.
So I would highly recommend this experience to anyone who might be interested. Michael has put a lot of effort and time and energy into developing this program, and I think it really will be an impactful and powerful experience for anyone who chooses to engage.
I'm so grateful to you, and I believe in what you're building. I believe that you're going to make it even better and you're going to make it even bigger, because your vision, you're the type of person who envisions something and has action plans, and you put your spirit guides into it, your ancestors